Shalom, everyone. Welcome to Did You Know? This is our weekly podcast. I am Rabbi Ira Brower, your host with Shalom Boca Messianic Synagogue here in Boca Raton, Florida. And today we have a special guest. My friend Jeremy Magdul is with us, and he's going to be sharing his story about how God has changed his life. So, Jeremy, welcome to the podcast today.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to have you. So let's start. Maybe just tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got to where we are today.
My name is Jeremy Magdul, like you said. Married to two boys, ages 8 and 5, and my wife's pregnant. Have a third on the way.
Yeah, mazel tov.
Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, we're very excited. Our first girl. So I grew up in Mexico City, Mexico, in a conservative Jewish home. And I guess moved to Boca Raton, Florida a little over 3 years ago now. My grandma lives here and my brother lives here as well. So
Okay.
when we decided to move to the States, this was a natural.
This is it. So tell us how your family got to Mexico, let's say, to start with.
And when they got married, about a year and a half after their marriage, they moved to Mexico, so my dad would work for my grandfather.
Okay. So it sounds kind of interesting. How did they meet in Las Vegas if your mom is in Mexico and your dad's in Pennsylvania?
Well, my mom's mom is actually from Ohio, so we've always had ties to the U.S. and Mexico. And she was in college in Tennessee and was in Las Vegas with a boyfriend at the time. And I guess my dad stole the prize.
Ah.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. And so they moved to Mexico City.
That's correct. Yeah, moved to Mexico City. Lived there ever since. They have 2 boys. I'm one of them. I'm the younger of the 2. I guess my dad worked for my grandfather for something like 15 years or so until he started his own business. And then, he's been...
What kind of business did your dad start?
Yeah, so he started out as a deli concept with a bakery in the back, and the bakery business eventually grew, and now it's just a bakery business, and I still work for him there today.
Okay. And so what was your Jewish experience growing up in Mexico City?
Yeah, so Mexico City is a small Jewish community, around 40 to 50,000. So mostly, I want to say like half conservative, half Orthodox. We were in the conservative movement. There's no Reform synagogues in Mexico, as opposed to.
Interesting.
Yeah, I guess Reform synagogues is a first world phenomenon.
Okay.
So yeah, we were part of the conservative movement. My grandfather and grandmother actually started a synagogue with a bunch of other families back in the day, and I decided to do my bar mitzvah in a different synagogue, which had more youth, and so now my parents are members of the synagogue where I did my bar mitzvah.
Okay.
But yeah, Mexico City's Jewish community, small. Everybody knows each other. But we weren't very religious, so to speak. I guess like many more modern Jews, we do high holidays.
Right.
Shivas, bar mitzvahs, weddings, those kinds of events, but not really attending Shabbat and praying every morning, those kinds of things.
Right.
A lot less involved religiously.
Right. Tell us about your education.
Yeah, so I went to Penn State. Didn't finish college. The party life got the best of me. And a few years after I dropped out, my dad told me to come back to Mexico to start working for him. So I went back. Started working for him 17 years ago now.
Okay. So you lived in the States after you dropped out of college?
Yeah, I stayed in the Pennsylvania area for about a year and a half, and then went to Vegas for about a
Okay.
year.
Viva Las Vegas.
Viva Las Vegas, yeah.
And
Um,
what did you do in Vegas?
so I played poker for a living
Okay.
for about over a year.
Okay. Were you successful at it?
I was successful at the tables and then would blow it all
Uh,
after I left the tables. Yeah, so um, not too successful in that regard.
yeah. So this was the party life?
Yes, definitely the party life got the best of me in Vegas too.
Uh-huh. So what was your drug of choice, let's say?
Ooh, any,
Anything.
yeah,
Anything and everything?
anything and everything. Yeah, I guess definitely, yeah, just anything and everything. It's
Okay.
not till after I got back to Mexico I really stopped on the harder drugs and then just smoked weed for till I came to faith, basically.
Okay. So after Vegas, you go back to Mexico, work for Dad.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the progression. Yep, after Vegas. Actually went back to Pennsylvania for a few months. Um, was in Pennsylvania working for my uncle, and that's kind of the connection. I hadn't spoken to my dad in a while. And then working with my uncle, he does a carnival business in the summer, and I was there just to help him out for the summer. I was gonna go back to Vegas. My dad started speaking to me through him, and then eventually I got word that he'd take me back. One of those prodigal son stories.
Oh, okay. So he had essentially cut you off, or your dad?
No,
He was
I
just
think
angry at you?
I think I stopped talking to him.
Oh, it was yours on your part.
Yep. And at some point there, I guess he probably wrote me off as well, but I think the stop in communication came more from me than it did from him.
Yeah. Okay, so you're back in Mexico City, working for Dad, so you've somewhat reconciled that rift with him at this point?
Yeah, I would say so. Eventually, working for him, I think he started to trust me a little bit again. And that trust has grown through the years. So yeah,
Sure.
definitely some reconciliation there for sure.
Yeah.
He reminds me every chance he gets, though.
Okay. And tell us how you met your wife, because I love that story.
Yeah. Well, so like I mentioned, I have my grandmother here in Boca Raton. So I'd come and visit as often as I could. And I guess my mom was already in Florida, and I took a flight, early morning flight, to come visit, and I met my wife on the flight. And I guess she was on her way to Montreal, but was stopping in Miami, connecting flight in Miami, and we got to talking a little bit, not much, but it was basically love at first sight. And yeah, I asked her for her Facebook. That's how I did it. No phone number, nothing like that. I went the Facebook way, and I added her on Facebook. I wrote to her. I said, "Hey, I'll be back in Mexico City in 10 days, and I want to take you out to dinner." So day 10, I was back in Mexico, and I wrote to her, "Hey, we having dinner tonight or what?"
Okay, and I guess she said yes.
Yes, she said yes. We had dinner probably the next 10 days or something until it started becoming a little bit more than just dinner.
Okay. And how long have you been married to Andrea?
So we've been together 11 years now.
Okay. And so would you mind sharing how the marriage has been, what it was like starting out and
Yeah, that's
going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we started dating, was very fun. Moved in together I think like 3-4 months after we started dating. When it started getting serious, she would ask me if I expected her to convert to Judaism. I had said no. Um, weren't married yet when she got pregnant to my older son Lucas. Um, we got married. We had a civil wedding like a month before Lucas came, and like 6 months into the pregnancy, I finally mustered up the chutzpah to go and talk to the rabbi there and said, my wife and I think want for her to convert so that we could, have a united front and be able to teach the kids and something about something.
Yeah.
And that's when she started the conversion process. It took about 2 years. And then we eventually had a religious wedding 2 years after. And so that was good. I think things started going south right before our religious wedding. And we had trouble from there, I want to say basically till I came to faith. And it got pretty dark there for a while before it got started.
What would you say was the, main source of darkness, as you put it?
Yeah, I don't know. I think if, in retrospect, looking at it, I think there was a combination of her loss of identity when she converted, combined with, since we weren't very practicing Jews, she would say, hey, let's go to Friday night service. And I was like, well, I don't do that, and she's like, well, well, why don't you, or why don't we, and, kind of like making her feel like it was all for nothing, maybe.
It's interesting, over the years that I've been in the congregation, I've had a lot of situations like that that I've heard about, or that they've come to me. The wife converted to Judaism, thinking that, okay, we're going to live a Jewish life, and the husband, maybe the husband didn't even care, but the family, the husband's family, she's not Jewish, she needs to convert, right? So she goes through the, like Andrea did, this process. It's oftentimes pretty intense, and then they get married, and she's ready, light Shabbat candles and go to shul, go to synagogue, and he's like, no, I don't want to do any of that. And it causes friction, right?
Yeah, definitely caused a good bit of friction. I think, too, when she did it, it was to unite us and a united front towards our son. And the way I was living it out, kind of made it mean nothing, right? And so it's, hey, I do this great sacrifice out of love, and you're trashing it. So yeah, I think that had a big impact. Then fast forward a few years later, in the pandemic, we moved outside of Mexico City, and we had a security situation where I got robbed at gunpoint.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to. What was the point that brought you to Boca?
Yeah, so
go ahead.
I'll continue. I guess I got robbed at gunpoint. Stole my car, used my car to go kill a cop, and a whole Mexican nightmare. I had to go testify to what had happened. They didn't want to let me leave the courthouse when I went to testify. It took me about full day to get out of there. Whole Mexican nightmare. And then I finally leave. As it turns out, my car had been left at the crime scene, so they had recovered the car, but it was a whole legal process to be able to get the car back. And a few months later, I keep on getting these calls from the police department to go testify because they have somebody in custody that they think that was involved in that. Um, and I didn't. I would say, hey, I'm out of town. Sorry, I can't go today. Those kinds of things. And we lived in a gated community. My wife went with my kids to a birthday party outside of the gated community, and 5 guys in motorcycles surround her car with the kids in the car. She manages to escape, and I guess when she got home, we decided we were moving to Florida right after that. So it took us about 2 weeks to sell everything and line up all our ducks, and then we moved to Florida, and here we are in Boca Raton shortly thereafter.
So, so that was 3 years ago?
Yep. We moved August 3 years ago. Yeah, 2021.
Okay. And so you come here. You're still not interested in Yeshua. Wasn't on your radar, was he?
No, not at all. Not at all. If anything, when Andrea and I were talking about her conversion, I was like, well, if you want to convert, you can convert, but don't ever expect me to believe in Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations. And yeah, I guess I was pretty depressed. I don't know why this whole security situation, but led me into depths of depression, smoking a lot of weed at that point in time. And our relationship was getting from bad to worse. And at some point there, I have a cousin that attends Shalom Boca. And my wife we had separated, and she was staying with my cousin at that point in time. And wouldn't let me see the kids except for at Shalom Boca. So off I go to Shalom Boca for the first time. And I asked my cousin, I was like, hey, could I get the phone number for Rabbi Ira? Because I need him to talk some sense into my wife.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, we went to get a coffee, and I guess I came to faith that very same day.
Wow. Yeah, I remember it well. So in that time that we met at Starbucks over a cup of coffee, why don't you share, if you don't mind, what was it that turned the corner for you?
Yeah, so I think I had a lot of exposure to Catholicism in Mexico. No? Most of my friends that weren't from the Jewish community, in the secular high school that I went to and whatnot, country club we used to go to, all Catholic. So I had a bunch of exposure, and it would always come to mind like, well, what are you doing praying to a Jewish man? It makes no sense. And so in the coffee shop when you and I were speaking, I think it was the realization that there's no atonement for sin except through Yeshua. And
Wow.
I definitely was repenting for all I was doing and the way I'd lived my life up to that point. And yeah, I realized I needed Yeshua to cleanse me of those sins.
Yeah. Well, okay. So that was, if I remember right, Valentine's Day.
Yes,
right?
That's correct. Yeah.
What a great day to
2022.
make a decision based on God's love, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
And so what's changed since then?
So yeah, that's ever since then. Started getting back together with my wife. It was a process, but yeah, definitely started getting back together with her. Moved back in a few months after that. My relationship with my kids has gotten way better. I used to be one of those working father that thought that as long as I provided, I didn't have to do much with the kids. Old school. They're to be seen, not heard. And now I'm definitely a more hands-on father. Our family life revolves a lot around the congregation, but also we've made good friendships as well. I think sometimes even, I don't want to say too many, but sometimes our social life has way too much involved. Yeah, and we're like, no, I just need a weekend off. But a lot of it because since our relationship has gotten way better, I think our connections to the outer world also become way better, right? And so, the kids seem to be thriving in the congregation and their school and with their friends, sport.
That's great.
Yeah, so I think we definitely turned the page, and it just keeps on getting better as it goes.
Yeah, yeah. And for you personally, you still work for your dad, right?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, still work for my dad.
Long distance,
Hasn't fired
obviously.
me yet.
Hasn't fired you yet.
Yeah.
And you volunteer in the congregation as doing administrative
Yep.
work, right?
So about a year into coming to faith, I guess there was a lady that was doing some of the admin work that decided that it was time for her to take care of her grandkids. So that opportunity came up, and I've been, since I came to faith, it's been, whenever there's an opportunity and it's something I can help do, I definitely take the opportunity and run with it.
Yeah. You do a great job, and it's much appreciated.
Thank you.
And you're doing something else, too.
So I started studying in a place called MJTI, so it's Messianic Jewish Theological Institute.
Yeah.
I took what's called a Madrik program, which is, I guess, for anybody within Messianic congregations in some form of leadership or aspiring to be in some form of leadership. And that's been amazing, getting to really study Messianic theology as such, right? And it's a school where, being Jewish is important. Not a requirement, but it's important. They definitely focus on, I want to say, the Jewish side of Messianic faith, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So would you say, and I pretty much know the answer to this question because I know it's true for me too, and that is that having come to faith in Yeshua, that your Jewishness had more meaning. Would you want to talk about that?
So I think faith in itself has more meaning once you come to faith in Yeshua, and your relationship with God takes on a new form. And so what ends up happening is, because of that Jewish identity, the Jewishness or the Jewish expression of that faith just magnifies, right? And so, we attend Shabbat. I pray most mornings. I don't want to say every morning because that would be a falsehood. But I pray Rep Tefillin most mornings. Now I'm taking a Hebrew class. I read from Torah every so often at the congregation. I hadn't read from Torah since my bar mitzvah.
Yeah.
And so that was a relearning process, but it's been amazing. I really enjoyed it. Even my parents have been to the congregation to see me read from Torah, so that's been really cool. I got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old that say Shema and Motzi before every meal and stuff. So definitely the expression of faith. The only way we know how to do it is in a Jewish expression, right? So that gets reaffirmed.
Yeah. There's something when we receive Yeshua as Messiah, as Jewish people, that connects us to our heritage, to the Torah, in a way that before it was just more external, works. Even if we went to Shabbat service every week, I did that growing up, going to synagogue. I went to yeshiva, But it really didn't have much depth of meaning about God, who God is, what the nature of God is, and his promises to the Jewish people and to Israel, the covenants, all those things. For me, coming to faith in Yeshua, that just now came, had so much more meaning, all those things. Would you
Yeah,
want
definitely.
to share about that for yourself?
I think too, when you don't have that faith in Yeshua, you just don't understand. You're doing these repetitive things. You don't
Exactly.
speak Hebrew. You're either singing in Hebrew in the synagogue or reading the English, or in my case, Spanish, right, in Mexico, and it just doesn't mean much. But I think, at least for me, there was always that quest for God in some form or another throughout my life. Um, and definitely if you seek him, you'll find him, or he'll find you, either or. But yeah, so when you come to faith, and I guess definitely the messianic approach is to understand the Word of God and be able to relate with it, and be able to relate with God at that, through the Word of God. Um, yeah, it just changes completely when you understand what you're doing.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, well, we're going to wrap up. And Jeremy, if there's someone out there that, a Jewish person that's thinking, well, is Jesus for Jews or whatever, do you have a word that you'd like to share with somebody like that?
Yeah, I think I would say, for starters, don't stop searching. I think if you do search, you will find him. And, I think that if you do come to faith, or when you do come to faith, your Jewishness will definitely be reaffirmed. There's no conversion process like Paul says, right? If you are circumcised, you stay circumcised. If you're uncircumcised, say
Yep,
I'm
that's right.
circumcised. So, yeah, definitely, read the Bible. It'll be pretty much clear there.
Yeah, it's a good place to start, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
definitely.
Well, thank you for your time today, Jeremy, for sharing
you,
your
Rabbi.
story. And it's really an encouragement, and I pray it's an encouragement for anyone that's watching, Jew or Gentile, about how God can take someone stuck in, myself as well, stuck in drugs, stuck in the world, and transform us into the image that he created us to be, which is to be a lover of God, to be a follower of his. And so for anyone out there that's watching, I encourage you to comment on the link, or if you have a question, please post your question, and of course like and share and subscribe. That would help us as well. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.